Hello, I'm Philip Hughes and I teach research methods. This film is about coding and analysing your data, qualitative data, and using Nvivo to do that. You've conducted your interviews and you've transcribed them and you've loaded them into Nvivo. You've created cases for each individual and for each group and or organisation. You've created case classifications and you're now ready to add nodes. This is a brief introduction and it's designed for those who are thinking about the coding rather than for those who are actually ready to do it. It's really best to do a course in Nvivo so that you become familiar with it and its powerful ways of assisting you in the analysis of your data. How do you go about the coding of your information? There's various approaches. One of the most usual ways of doing it is based on the actual questions and the responses to those questions. And that coding can be done automatically by Nvivo if you've used headings above each question area, and those headings are then auto-recoded by the style used in the heading. And certainly looking at the various ways in which people answer the particular question may well provide you with some really important information. However, that will not provide you with everything. Often people say things that are not in answer to specific questions but can be really relevant to your research. Often questions are relatively general and you gather information through a variety of approaches to your topic. The most fundamental coding is based on research questions and on hypotheses, and so you need to form nodes for each of the major hypotheses or elements in your research question. Supposing you're looking at what people mean by spirituality, you then may have a range of what may be called child nodes, sub-nodes, nodes related to religion, for example. And there may be another node in which spirituality is related to the land or to the environment. Another node may be about the use of spiritual resources from various sources such as Buddhism and yoga, New Age. There may be another node relating where the spirituality is related to the inner self, or spirituality that's related to relationships of love and peace. So as you analyse each of that, the material according to those nodes, then you will have a variety of opinions about those different ways of seeing spirituality. It's helpful to have a number of meta codes. Codes about attitudes, for example. So you've got positive attitudes, negative, mixed, and where there's no opinion. And you can apply those in many places so that one can actually look up positive attitudes to environment and negative attitudes to the environment. And you can identify people in those different groups. But in order to do that, you'll need to have the same material coded perhaps several times with these different codes. You might use a great quotes code, which identifies particular quotes that you might then use when you put your thesis together. Analysis in Nvivo depends on overlapping codes to some extent. So we expect to code one piece of text in several ways. We'll often code a paragraph, but there'll be several themes in the paragraph. There'll be those different positive and negative attitudes within the paragraph. Another approach to coding is that you may look at the words that people use and the usage of those words. Identify some key words and then look for those key words. Do some word searches and transform those searches into codes. However, again, remember that particular words may not be sufficient to pick up things, as people express things in many ways. And mostly, in qualitative research, you are interested in meanings. There are other approaches to coding too. You can distinguish between descriptive codes and analytical codes. Descriptive codes are useful to help identify common elements in interviews and to bring them together. Descriptions of emotions, of values, particular content. Analytical codes are focused more on the dynamics and on the research questions. Why things are happening. You will probably need to work through your material and code more than once. And very often you'll find as you do your coding that it develops as you go along. The structure of your code book may change. That's a good thing, as it shows that you're open to the data, that you're not forcing everything into your preconceptions. For a really detailed look at the nature of coding, I recommend Johnny Saldana, the Coding Manual for Qualitative Research, which has been published by Sage. As you're working through your coding, you may make notes to yourself using annotations. These annotations cannot be coded themselves, but they're particularly useful if you want to come back to something, or perhaps you need explanation of something that's been said, and you can attach such an annotation to a particular part of an interview. You can also make memos. And these are ways of keeping notes about the material as you're working through it. You can use a memo as a research journal, and you can keep adding to it. Use memos to record general ideas about your research project. You can export these memos to Word to use them in your thesis later. What are people saying about the topic, about the theme, about your research question? Qualitative research is often a story of the similarities of thinking and of attitudes, perceptions, and also the differences between people. Nvivo brings material together for you to see these similarities and differences. It allows you to explore the codes. It allows you to look at specific nodes or several nodes together. Matrix coding allows you to look at codes separated by other codes. People's views of religion and spirituality, for example, and how those different views of religion and spirituality actually relate to each other. It allows you to look at code separated by case characteristics. So you can look at views of religion by age group or by gender. Analysis is primarily about understanding. What are people saying about your research topic? Do their answers provide data that feed into your research question? What are the differences and similarities of people? Are there patterns that you can identify? Do women tend to approach things differently from men? Younger people from older people? And why should those differences occur? In your thesis or article, you will not be describing just what you found, but rather you will be developing an argument and providing the evidence for that argument. You can make statements based on your interviews. Your interviewees were saying this. At the same time, you can talk about the nuances and the differences that you found. So you present your findings by themes and not by cases. It's the themes that build your argument. In each theme, develop it in terms of how people spoke about it, noting differences amongst different groups of people. You can illustrate those differences and those similarities well through quotations from your transcripts. People who read your thesis will want to weigh up for themselves the evidence that you've provided and come to their own conclusions. Be careful in generalising, particularly from qualitative data. You've only interviewed a few people. It's quite possible that others may see things quite differently. Nevertheless, you do have evidence of how some people see things and how their opinions and their attitudes fit together. Note what you can conclude from your evidence and what needs further research. The limitations that you acknowledge are very important and show that you are well aware of both the strengths and the weaknesses in your argument. Good qualitative research can add greatly to our understanding of the world, and particularly our understanding of people.